What is going on, everybody? My name is Legendary LaShawn, and this is a legendary video. And I just wanted to introduce myself to the people and everything else. Try to, talk a little bit about, who I am, my mind state, and kind of the plans for this channel, since this is my first video back in a long while. So the reason why I keep on taking breaks is because a lot of times I didn't really know what I wanted to do with this channel. YouTube is such a tricky thing because now that it's so profitable for companies, for content creators, independent contractors, whatever you want to call them, and stuff like that, there's so many people that are out there, right? And so anybody can make up a YouTube channel, and a lot of times I'll get recommended just, random things that do have to do with, things that I've searched when it comes to stuff about the FGC, when it comes to stuff about music, when it comes to stuff about animation, art, that kind of stuff, and everything else, which is really dope. But it's hard to kind of break through and to enter into that upper echelon, and to really kind of hit the ground running, because there's so much that's out there, especially when it comes to fighting games. It's no longer a niche anymore, in my opinion. It is a niche, but it's a lot more mainstream than it was before, where now there's a different video every week analyzing stuff that happened in tournaments, analyzing, character trailers and stuff like that. And so I had a hard time figuring out, what is this channel going to be? So I have finally figured out, and I really want this channel to be a space where, the regular everyday people can just come and talk about things, can come and not just talk about their opinions, but the kind of things that are plaguing them, the kind of things that is stopping the everyday man from being a fighting game player and being somebody that is comfortable with the fighting game genre, right? And if you think about it, what are some of the reasons why a lot of times people find it really hard to get into fighting games? A lot of times people are just scared, right? A lot of times when you look at even a game like Street Fighter 6 especially, right? Which I think that, in my opinion, Street Fighter 6 to me is, I would say, in my opinion, a harder game to be the best at than a Tekken or a Mortal Kombat, in my opinion. Street Fighter, in my opinion, is not the easiest game to just get into as a new player, because a lot of times of the motion controls, when you sit there and explain Tekken to somebody and explain the fact that, hey, for each one of your limbs, there is a button, right? There's one, we call them 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very simple concept, right? If somebody hits the square button, which is 1, they're going to see that left hand go. If they hit the 2, they're going to see that right hand go, on and so forth. And so, when it comes to Tekken, a lot of times, it's actually very friendly to button mashers. But a lot of times with Street Fighter, unless you're playing Honda or something like that, a lot of stuff is motion controls. You got to do a quarter circle, you got to do a Z motion. Heck, you might have to do a 360 or even a half certain for certain characters and stuff like that. And so it can be a lot, right? And nobody, Dave Chappelle said that, every joke is funny until it happens to you, right? It's always funny to watch somebody else slip and fall in the hallway, but when you slip and fall, you don't want anybody laughing at you, and you got a problem when somebody does laugh at you, right? Nobody likes to feel that way. And so because of that, nobody wants to be made the fool of, right? You see a lot of videos. I remember that Maximilian was talking about this thread on Twitter that was the most outrageous fighting game moments and stuff, and one of the ones that I love so much was this dude at a tournament who basically made up a theme song for somebody getting jacked up really bad. And I'm not somebody that curses and all that stuff, but it basically was somebody's getting bobbed, somebody's getting bobbed. And it was so hilarious because the melody was on point. He had background singers, people joining him. Nobody wants to be a part of that or wants to be the center of that, right? I really wouldn't want to either. So the answer, or I guess not the answer, the question that we need a little bit of a mic problem. How are you going to be able to overcome that? Well, in my opinion, and a lot of this stuff, I want it to kind of be a discussion. I want to really open things up for the community and stuff like that. Looking at, like, my comment section and everything. Like, I want people to post, even if it's hate posts, like, oh, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, shut up, whatever else. I want to be able to engage with that type of stuff so that way people can feel comfortable saying what it is that they got to say, right? Because a lot of times, unless you are a reputable person in the fighting game community, a lot of times either your voice won't be heard or it'll be thrown away. And so, how are you supposed to beat this feeling? Well, one of the ways is that you have to, and it's really hard, right? The first thing that you have to do is that you have to identify what is your objective for playing fighting games, especially. Right? A lot of people, when they play a video game, they're trying to have fun. They're trying to escape and stuff like that, right? Fighting games is a very interesting medium because, in my opinion, it is the most interactive, right? If you're playing single player, that's one thing. But even still, in that, the computer, a lot of times, is equipped with certain things to be able to read you in a different way. Like, for most things, like, a Kingdom Hearts or what is it called? An Elden Ring. I was about to say Elder Scrolls. That's crazy. An Elden Ring or even a Monster Hunter and stuff like that. The computer has a fixed path a lot of times. Certain routines that they have to abide by. And a lot of times in video games they have that too, but as of recently with Street Fighter 6 and even with Tekken 8, we've seen them implement kind of a AI aspect to it, where now these games are really analyzing your patterns and stuff like that to show you where you are lacking, right? And so it's not just like, okay, I got the pattern down, I know my plan of attack, and I'm going to stick to it no matter what. No, a lot of times in fighting games, you have to adapt. You have to switch things up, right? If you continuously keep on doing a, little fast punch into a grab, well, the computer and a real life person is going to be able to catch on to that to the point where they're going to be able to punish you for that. If it's Street Fighter, you got a super, if it's Tekken, if you're, doing a high grab or whatever else, then they can duck it, they can launch you, whatever else, you know what I'm saying? And so, a lot of times you have to actually be able to, adapt and stuff like that, right? And so you really have to identify why it is that you're playing this game. Are you trying to be the best? Are you just trying to have fun? Are you trying to learn? Like, are you a scholar? What is it about fighting games that looks so interesting, right? And I would say for most people that are casual, a lot of times it's the combos, it's the flashy stuff, right? If you look at Street Fighter 6, it's funny. I remember people had this weird thing where they were saying like, oh, Street Fighter 6 is boring because you see the same drive rush, you see the same things all the time and stuff like that, which is not true because, I could look at two different Zangief. Like Snake Eyes does not play, Zangief the way that Inabashi Zangief does. They're two completely different things, you know what I'm saying? There's plenty of pro players that play the same characters when it comes to the different characters that are in Street Fighter and stuff like that, but they play them completely different. And that's because of the drive system, right? Even if you take something like Drive Rush, because a lot of people complain about that, right? Drive Rush is such a crazy concept because it changes frame data, right? Normally frame data is something that is locked and that you can't really do too much to, right? Frame data is something that is kind of like, hardwired and specific to each character. But with Drive Rush, it allows you to change the frame data so that, previous combos that were not possible can be possible. Now you can get juggles, you can get, different setups, different mix-ups, all this different kind of stuff and everything else, right? The funny thing is that, in my opinion, I would say that the only problem with the drive system is that it's a lot. They gave you a lot of options, and to some people, that is a lot to be able to swallow at one time. Most people only are able to really digest maybe one or two different mechanics in a fighting game. And so that can be very, very, not just distractive, but it can be very, very daunting, right? So what does that have to do with your motive while you're playing the game? Well, a lot of time your motive is what helps you to push past the hardships. It's a lot of times what helps you to push past things that maybe you don't like about the game, right? There's plenty of pros that may not like Street Fighter 6, and there's plenty that was, not plenty. There were some that were saying that they really like Street Fighter 5 more than Street Fighter 6. That is their opinion. That is fine. I think that it's a total bogus opinion, but hey, more power to you, right? And I think in another video I might try to get into the reason why I'm saying that, because for a lot of people, they may not really understand it, especially if Street Fighter 6 is your first fighting game, right? Where was I at? I'm sorry, but a lot of times the motivation that you have is what keeps you going, right? So getting into who I am and why you should watch me, my motivation is knowledge, right? And a lot of what I pull, I feel like, just a little bit about me, Cody is my favorite fighting game player of all time. Favorite one, top, right? But the player that I personally identify with the most and that I kind of base my philosophy of fighting games is Ryu, right? When I first got into Street Fighter 4, Ryu was the first character that I was playing. And I've always liked Ryu because I've always respected this person who goes through these ups and downs and is undaunted, right? And those are the type of archetypes in a character that I really, really love, right? Like, even if you talk about anime, my favorite character is, Monkey D. Luffy, because of how undaunting he is, despite the things that he has to go through, right? Ryu in Street Fighter, even though a lot of times he's looked at as the chosen one, which essentially he is, and at this point, he's essentially the grand master kind of this world and stuff like that. Not sure if he's quite on Akuma's level, because even in this arcade mode, it kind of seems like Akuma's still above him with the Satsui no Hado. But Ryu's philosophy is really trying to figure out the essence of strength and trying to gain the true essence of strength, right? Ryu has lost a lot. Even if you go back to the original Street Fighter, when Ryu was fighting Sagat in that first tournament, Sagat was whooping his behind. Like he was giving it to him, and it was really showing Ryu how much he had to grow. And of course, because of that devastation and that will of wanting to win, it caused him to tap into the Satsui no Hado, which then caused him to almost kill Sagat and mortally wound him. No good, right? And a lot of times, that's what you want to avoid. I'm not saying that the will to win is a bad thing and that desire to win is a bad thing, but if you only focus on that, at a certain point, things stop becoming fun, and a lot of times you'll lose respect for actually being the better player. What do I mean by that, right? This is a good point to mention Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V was a game where the character was not the only defining facet of why you would win a match, right? But it did have a lot to do with what your outcome was, right? Like, because of how the game's mechanic was and because of how limiting they were with a lot of different characters, it dictated, it kind of not it didn't predetermine the outcome, but it kind of made the outcome greater in one favor, if that makes any sense, right? Like, especially when the game first came out, if you were playing Ryu and, your character, or if somebody was playing Ryu and you were playing Fong, you had a long road to go. Like, it was going to be very, very bad for you. And it didn't matter, or not that it didn't matter. You had to make so many right decisions with a character like that, that in a It limited your ability as a player, where a lot of times in Street Fighter V, it felt like being the best player all the time, especially when the game first came out, it felt like being the best player didn't matter. It didn't really feel like smart play was favored, and it felt like a lot of times, especially in the second season, that you just had to do offense, offense, offense. So what I'm saying is that it's not bad for you to want to win. Everybody should want to win, right? Ultimately, that's the goal, is to beat your opponent, right? But when you're winning, are you outsmarting your opponent? Are you getting into your opponent's head, right? There's a certain type of, I want to say, euphoria that you get when it's, oh, I didn't just beat you, I outthought you. Like, this game was over before it even began because I was already in your head and I knew what moves you were going to make, right? If you talk about that kind of mindset, you know, with this new year, I'm automatically thinking of like, you know, Kendrick Lamar and Drake, where it was very clear that Kendrick had things so planned out meticulously that, you know, that, and he had been studying Drake for literally like 15 to, you know, however many years and stuff like that, where, you know, he had Drake down to, you know, a science, to be honest. And I think that's a lot of what had to do with why the victory that he had was so monumental, because it's not just like, oh, I beat you. With Not Like Us, I proved that what you do is so easy to do, that anybody can do it, or that I can do it just like you can, and that there's nothing special about you, right? A lot of times when it comes to fighting games, low-key, it's kind of the same thing, where it's not just that I beat you, but I'm so far ahead in my thinking and my understanding of this game that you would have had to pull some kind of a trick out of your hat to even beat me. So the thing that I would say, and I try to give, like, you know, people that I know or people that want to get into fighting games a little bit of homework. When you go into a game, right, if you do play fighting games already, or if you want to try to play fighting games and you want to try to go online, when you go in there, play whatever character that you want to play. I would suggest learning the archetype of the character that you want to play. Like, what does this character do? Start off very simple. What does this character do? What are the tools available to me? And then what can I do with it, right? Always start out with the baseline. So start out with your fireball, start out with your buttons, you know, kind of a little bit of the system mechanics and stuff like that, right? Once you get into that and you get into that baseline, see how you could kind of play with things a little bit. Because a lot of times there's a lot of room for creativity. Sorry about that, somebody's dog's going wild. But there's a lot of room for creativity. And so try to play with the game. Like, try to keep the game as a game, right? Video games in general was made for fun. Even when they made Street Fighter, it was made to be competitive, but it was kind of like, almost like rock, paper, scissors, right? Like, when you play rock, paper, scissors, you're not trying to just to completely destroy your opponent and everything else, right? But you're trying to get inside of their head. You're trying to prove to them that, hey, I knew what you was going to do and I outthought you, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's, you know, normally still all pounds and high fives after that, right? It should be the same thing when you're playing fighting games. Now, what I'm talking about right now is the beginning journey. I'm talking about just starting out. And with this channel, I want to be able to go on a journey with y'all to become better players, right? I'm always going to have, like, you know, different gameplay in the background so that you guys can see the type of things that I'm talking about. And I'm going to be using my own gameplay to kind of talk about the type of mindset that, you know, different people have when it comes to this. And also the mindset that I have going into this type of fighting game to try to inspire other people to form your own mindset. Form what it is that makes you you, and go out there and show people. Don't be afraid. So that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Take care. See you later. Like, comment. Please, please comment. Please engage. I want to be able to take these comments. I want to be able to put them in my video. I want to respond directly to all of y'all. Also subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can, you know when I come out with new videos. And I'll see y'all.